Welcome to Old Guy Tech,
the OGT.TV recording studio.
Technology for the rest of us.
Hello, I'm Rob Charny, and you're watching Crime Beat for August 12th, 2015, and I'm here with my good friend John DiAgostini, Sheriff of El Dorado County. John, thank you very much for coming in and doing our show again. As always, we expanded the set a little bit. Look at that, huh? We punched out some walls. We look really big today. Oh, it is. Technology. I love it. Yeah, I love it. So, John and I have been talking back and forth about some of the things that have been going on in California and the country, and I thought it was important that we talk about a few what I called hot topic issues going on right now. And one of the ones that has been in the news a lot is sanctuary cities. And I know law enforcement is involved with this, so I wanted to take an opportunity for you to explain to us about sanctuary cities.
Yeah. Well, first of all, what's going on right now, to me, is one of the most hypocritical things that I've seen so far in my administration as far as our legislation, both local, state, or I should say not local, but state and federal.
Right.
And to talk about sanctuary cities, you got to go back and talk about secure communities, and then you need to talk about the Trust Act.
Okay.
So when the feds initiated the secure communities or whatever, something like that was called, it started that ball about selective enforcement on the immigration laws and who are we actually going to hold accountable and dealing with ICE and their inability or unwillingness to actually follow the law.
Right.
So, because, I mean, if you think about it, this whole illegal immigration issue, or illegal aliens, did you know that there was just a new bill passed that says they're taking alien out of everything? All of our legislation, all of our laws, because it's derogatory comments. It's a derogatory word. So
The word
no
alien?
more alien, yeah. So no more alien. But that's okay.
You've got to be kidding me.
No, I'm not kidding you.
This is federal?
I believe it's the feds or the state. I heard, I read something.
The
about
word
it the other day.
alien?
The word alien, yeah.
Unless, of course, they come from Mars or something, right?
So,
Jeez,
and
all
there's
right.
legal aliens.
I don't
There's
know.
legal aliens.
But you can't say alien. So they're legal
I'm not
what?
alien now. I don't know.
You've got to be called something.
Don't be something. So anyway, there's a process to come here legally. There's a process to do it right. If you want to come here and work, you can get a work visa. You can get a green card. You can do all that stuff. You want to come to school, you can get those kind of visas. There's the legal ways to do this, and we're not talking about that, nor is our federal government even dealing with that issue. All they want to talk about is let the ones that have chosen to do it illegally, to give them a pass.
Right.
So that's what started it. Then California turns around and passes the Trust Act. The Trust Act did many things, some of which was allow these sanctuary cities. It allowed cities to say, we don't have to no longer abide by federal law. We can allow these illegal folks to be here. We'll take care of you. We'll, like the Statue of Liberty sign.
Yeah, right. Bring us our, you're tired, you're hungry.
Which was not the intent. The intent was to do it legally, and we did.
Anyway. Of course.
So all these legislators, all these lawmakers that supported all this, that really lobbied all this and worked hard for all this. Then we have the Kate Steinle shooting, murder in San Francisco. Mm-hmm. And if you remember, that happened, and then all of these legislators, Democrat and Republican, I won't even. It was a bipartisan deal. Came out and screamed bloody murder that we need to fix this. We need to fix this. We need to fix this. And I'll tell you, I was mad. I was really, really angry to the point where I was losing sleep. I couldn't stop thinking about it. I called a representative from California State Sheriff's Association, and I said, please explain to me that I have this wrong. These same people that are now screaming bloody murder about these sanctuary cities and the ineffectiveness of our immigrations and customs enforcement are the same ones that caused this to happen through
voted it in.
The Trust Act and the other laws prior.
Right.
Too. And he said, nope, you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
I said, so why aren't we doing anything about it? He goes, we are. We have been, and nobody listens. They don't want to hear it.
Yeah.
They got blood on their hands. They're afraid to admit it.
Yeah.
They don't want to go anywhere. So, to me, this whole sanctuary cities, secure community, whatever trust act,
right.
it's the most hypocritical thing that we have ever seen, that I have ever seen, and I have seen in the last 5 years. It's disgusting. All we have to do is follow the law. The law works. If we don't like the law, change the law. But the law is still on the books. The law still says if somebody comes into my custody of the El Dorado County Sheriff's Office in our jail, and they have committed a crime, and they are found to be an undocumented alien, an illegal immigrant.
Okay, no more alien. Illegal immigrant.
An undocumented alien, an illegal immigrant. The law says that prior to their release, we are to notify ICE. They're released for whatever reason. They bail, they get released on OR, their time is served, whatever it is. We are to notify ICE. And upon that notification, ICE would give us direction as to hold that individual.
Right.
The law says that if ICE says, yep, hold them, for whatever reason, the law says you shall hold this person up to 48 hours. Shall, not may. The law says shall.
Right.
That gives ICE time to send a bus over to pick them up.
But it doesn't work that way.
It doesn't work that way now. It's the Trust Act.
Right.
We cannot hold that person 1 second more
Than
than when their time is up.
That's right.
And the case that's supporting it that is a case out of Portland, Oregon.
Mm-hmm.
That's not it's citable, but it's not case law.
Right.
But
Okay.
it's citable,
Mm-hmm.
and there's been cases already in California lost because of that. And the argument is, if you want to hold that person pursuant to the Constitution, you have to have due process. So get a warrant. If you want to hold them, you have to have a warrant. You can't hold them based on probable cause only.
Right.
Now, that's what we do every day. When we arrest somebody for violation of the penal code,
Right.
we arrest them based on probable cause that the person arrested has committed the crime. Period.
Right.
And we're allowed to do that for how long? Up to
48 hours.
So it's not a violation of due process. It's already clearly established law. But because we have all these bleeding hearts that want to exacerbate the problems, which is another political agenda, whether we like it or not, we're creating more dangerous communities. We're letting criminals out of our jail that have no business even being on the street, let alone in our communities. They need to be deported.
Right. Right. But now, because of the way it's set up, you either have to, can you even report to ICE, let's say 48 hours prior to that date where they were, okay, you are going to serve 6 months, 2 days, 4 hours, boom. That's the date they got to be kicked. Right. Are you able to contact ICE?
Yes. Oh, yeah. We still have that ability.
So you got to do that.
And we do that in every instance we can.
Right.
But for instance, we go to court, the suspect goes to court, and for whatever reason gets OR'd. And he happens to be the last on the calendar before the van's coming back to jail.
Right.
There's no time. Or let's say that they come in, they're arrested, and they're on the phone, they're arranging bail. Bail bondsman shows up and bails them out in 5 minutes. We have no time. And then on top of that, you have the PEP, the priority enforced policing.
Yeah, something like that.
By ICE.
Yeah.
Where they're determining, they're looking at the seriousness of the individual that's in custody, the seriousness of the crimes, and who the individual is. Not just on the fact that they're an illegal alien. So who's to say, and there's no clear cut, there's no standard. We've had these arguments with ICE representatives. There's no standard. So this person's come into this country and has been deported 3 times. We don't care if he's only here on a DUI this time. He needs to go back.
Yeah.
No, we're not going to come get that one.
Well, what
doesn't
about
meet our PEP.
the guy that did 7 times?
7 times.
7 times.
Yep.
And finds a gun, and it discharges and it kills a woman. 7 times, folks. How many times, I just don't get it. So
yeah.
Here we have these sanctuary cities that are able to proactively or not proactively are able to say to law enforcement or whatever it may be is that this is a sanctuary. The laws that are on the books, so I want to understand this, the laws that normally would apply to everywhere outside the sanctuary cities cannot apply inside the city. Is that the way?
Sure.
Okay, so that's the
laws.
So they can do whatever they want.
Keep in mind, we're a nation of laws. Look at many of the issues that we're dealing with today in regards to public safety and social welfare. I say social welfare. You look at, for instance, the marijuana issue.
Right.
Okay. Why are we even dealing with this? How could a law like 11362.5, the Compassionate Use Act, even pass? Because it's in direct violation of federal law. If we don't like the law, we change the law. But we can't ignore the law. The law says, according to the scheduling, the drug schedule, marijuana is a Schedule I dangerous drug. It's still that way. It's
right.
a Schedule I dangerous drug, meaning it has absolutely no medical use, medically proven use, or anything. It is a dangerous drug. It's highly abused. It's addictive. Yada, yada, yada. It's the Schedule I drug. You cannot, it's a felony to possess it. But yet we've ignored that. We've allowed that law to be ignored. Once we start ignoring laws,
right,
we start down this slippery slope.
Right.
Now we have we're ignoring federal immigration law. We're ignoring case law. We're ignoring regulatory law. We're ignoring everything, whether we like it or not. Laws are getting ignored on a daily basis. If we don't like the law, change the law.
So let's talk about the marijuana situation, because I'm a little confused on this whole issue. I mean, I understood at one time. Okay, obviously it was a Schedule I drug. It was illegal. You popped with any quantity, boom, you went to jail. Then it went to an ounce or less.
A misdemeanor.
Misdemeanor. Ticket basically is what it was. Boom. Mm-hmm. And then we started this, and I never quite understood it. I know you told me a couple of times, but it was where you could grow a certain amount for personal use, and or 2 or 3 of your buddies could join in, and you could get a license or whatever it may be, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And as long as it was, I think at first you couldn't even be seen. It had to be covered up, and then it just went to nobody cared, and then all of a sudden, has that gone away? Are we back to enforcing these? I mean, what's happening with these dispensaries? I'm kind of confused on what's going on there.
Our district attorney in El Dorado County has made it very clear that, and I agree with this 100%. If we don't disagree and mind what the voters voted for in 1996 under the Compassionate Use Act, which was, and what was portrayed in the media and the propaganda.
Yeah.
If you're dying of cancer, you have a serious medical illness where marijuana provides relief. Serious medical illness where marijuana provides relief. Smoke your weed. Grow a few plants to provide you with enough marijuana. That's fine. We don't have time to deal with that. But that's not what we ended up with. We end up with these people growing marijuana commercially. They're making a lot of money off of it. They're not paying taxes. These dispensaries, we're paying taxes. Baloney. You're paying taxes. You got 2 sets of books. You got one set of books that you're paying taxes on, and the other set of books, even if they are books, it's a huge cash
business. Yeah,
when you
exactly.
go into a dispensary and serve a search warrant on a dispensary, and this is a case, I won't name which ones, and there is, we're paying taxes. Here's our books. Here's our IRS documents. Here's our tax documents. We pay quarterly, and last year we paid taxes on $350,000 of income. Wow, that's a lot of income. That's a lot of taxes by the time you figure it all out. Problem is, they got a couple $1 million in the safe. That's baloney. That's a criminal enterprise. Simple as that.
Yeah,
So-
it's too easy to pocket all cash businesses.
Absolutely.
That's
So, again, it all started because we started to ignore the law.
right.
If we didn't like the law, then
Change
the
the law.
Get marijuana rescheduled as a Schedule 2. I don't care.
Yeah.
But that's the way you fix it. You don't ignore the law.
So all this workaround and all this round stuff going out now, does El Dorado County still have dispensaries?
We still have a couple operating dispensaries. Yes, we do.
Okay, so are we choosing? Is it a choice to ignore their operation, or is it
Absolutely not.
okay?
They've all been served with letters that they are operating in our district attorney's opinion unlawfully, and I would rather not say any more. But no, if they're making a profit,
So they're choosing to ignore it, and the fact that they're making so much money that they can easily pay their attorneys for everything, probably.
yeah, and you Vernon, I understand some of the tough spot he's in, but unless it's a really big case, he's not going to get a jury to convict.
True.
But again, it goes back to how did we end up where we are? Why do even people have that mindset? The law is the law. And, as much as we've never really talked about, I don't think on this show, about nullification, jury nullification, which is not how the system is supposed to work, contrary to what some people say. If you have 12 people on a jury, they're instructed on the law. If they don't agree with the law, they cannot acquit somebody just because they don't agree with the law. They are instructed to, and the law says that this is what the law is, and that's what you're finding on.
Right.
Nullification sounds great, and it's very appealing, and it's very romantic, but it's not the law.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you sit on a jury, you're given a set of instructions, and this is your guideline as to how you need to find. You can't come up with your own opinion and what you want to do. It's black and white. If you've ever sat on a jury, you'll find out that that's the way it is.
Absolutely.
If you're chosen. Okay, so that answers a little bit about the sanctuary city things. I think we're going to continue to hear more. Let's talk about gun-free zones. Seems to me that we have been having more and
Kill
more.
zone. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I interrupted.
You're absolutely right. We're having a real issue with gun-free zones because it seems to me that the criminals are not. They either can't read, they're not able to read, they can't understand it, or they're choosing, of course, to ignore the laws. And I'm going. It should be a gun-free zone. It means that everybody has a legal concealed carry weapon should be able to carry in that gun zone. That's what it means to me. It seems to me that it isn't working. And I had an interesting thing happen. I went to the movies yesterday. As the women were walking into the theaters, they said, "We want to look inside your bags." That's all it was. He looked, "Oh, okay, I see inside your bag," and they walk on. Well, all right. The only thing I saw that they were getting, because this got my curiosity out, what the heck are you looking for? Was a lady coming in with a little pizza that you wanted to have. Well, no, of course, that went right into the trash. So I'm trying to figure out what's going on here. Have we gotten to such a point now? No guys. I wasn't asked, and none of the men were asked. It was just the women with purses were asked. Let's see inside your purse.
You would have been carrying a backpack. Would they've asked?
Probably. They said because they called it bags. So maybe if I had my bag that I carry every now and then with all my stuff in it, it's like a briefcase. Maybe they would have looked into it. But it was so quick. They couldn't have seen anything. I mean, we already know that there's trained professionals, look at TSA, that already can't stop real live guns and knives and things going through. I couldn't figure out what he was looking for. I mean, it was so quick. He couldn't. I don't know. I don't understand. Pizza, and I, what? That may be it. It may be in an attempt to stop bringing in food from outside,
so that they can reap the.
Well, yeah, because really movie theaters make most of their money simply on the concession stands. So it's their bottom line that they're worried about. But I'm sitting there going, okay, because the first thing I thought is, okay, they're looking for guns.
Is there a gun-free zone
No.
sticker on our theaters?
No.
Good. That's good.
No, there isn't. And it is good because I damn well want to be, carrying in the theater the way things are going. Seems to be a fair. Anyway, I thought that was really interesting, and I just wanted to get everybody up to date on SB 707, which is as we talked about in our last show, under Penal Code, a person that has a concealed weapons permit is able to carry on school grounds. SB 707 is an attempt to stop that, to change that penal code. That for some reason they don't want a person that's licensed, background checked to the hilt, the whole bit, to be able to carry a firearm on school grounds. When it should be the other way around, of course. But that has gone back to appropriations. I'm hoping it's just going to die a date. I'm sure we'll see it again. But it came out of one of the committees, I'm not sure which one it is, and then it went to the floor. The floor sent it back, which is kind of interesting, to appropriations, and we're thinking it may pass away. I hope forever, along with a few other people I can think of. There's... Sorry, did I say that? Let's talk about the bill. You and I just momentarily, we talked about the AB 150, the theft of firearms. Mm-hmm. Okay, we talked about that the bill would, upon approval by voters, make the theft of a firearm grand theft in all cases punishable by imprisonment in the state prison. Mm-hmm. So the bill will restore the theft of a firearm valued at $950 or less to a felony, and this is to correct the consequences of a passage of Proposition 47 in 2014 that made such a theft a misdemeanor.
Right.
And so this was an attempt to make it, again, firearms back to a felony.
Theft of a firearm.
Yeah.
No matter the value.
Exactly.
Felony, the way it used to be prior to Prop 47.
In a way it should be.
Right.
Right. Well, it died and it actually failed.
It failed.
It failed.
It failed because you can't legislate the provisions of an initiative. And
Okay.
So if it was the initiative was clear. Theft of firearms is no longer a felony. It changed it to theft of firearm valued at over $950, same as any other property. So it was specific. So to try and legislate that back, you can't. You have to do it through the initiative process again, which I think could be done. But this way would have got litigated and it would
right.
have failed.
And it's a difference between coming
Because
from a
it was
legislator versus an initiative.
People.
Right.
And here's a perfect example. Also in Proposition 47, one of the unintended consequences was our ability to investigate crimes with search warrants. Mm-hmm. Prior to Proposition 47, theft of a firearm was a felony. You can write search warrants for felonies and only enumerated misdemeanors. So while it was a felony, somebody stole a gun. We got information, had probable cause that somebody stole that gun. We could write a search warrant because it was a felony and go recover that gun and any other evidence of the crime. Now, because that gun has to be valued over $950 to be a felony, let's say we got a gun that was stolen for $7 and it was only worth $750. We got pretty good probable cause. We know where it is. We don't got enough to arrest the person yet, but we got probable cause to believe we know where this gun is. Mm-hmm. We can no longer write a search warrant. That can be legislatively fixed in the law to change those enumerated misdemeanors allowed to write search warrants for.
And the way the anti-gunners are going, it wouldn't surprise me if it wasn't anyway. But let me ask you this. How is the value calculated on the firearm?
Good question.
And what if it's more than one firearm?
Good question.
Okay. So
no, it is aggregate.
Okay, so it's aggregate.
So if you steal 2 400s, I believe. You know what? That's a good
See?
question.
Isn't that a good question? That's my point. Question. Because when there's one, there's two, and you put the two together, and you'll easily have. Actually, it doesn't take much to get over 950 on a handgun these days. Not anymore. I mean, they're way up there anyway. So, but
bought a new rifle. Ask me afterwards.
Okay.
Or during the show, but after everything important.
Oh, okay. I always like to hear about new rifles. I need to go buy something new.
I haven't picked it up yet.
Okay.
I bought it. I haven't got it yet. I gotta wait my 10 days.
Don't get me started on this thing. I mean, it was
I
just,
know.
you know,
Like
this.
Indians, like everybody
How
else.
how is, of course, and I'm proud of you for you're not writing your own letter saying you're going to use this in the line
I
of your
won't do
job
that.
like these idiots do. I'm sorry,
Not a
guys.
duty weapon.
Not a duty weapon. You know that's so easily solved. If you already own a firearm, and let's just say that if you want to make it a little bit better, if a person has a concealed weapons permit, why is there a waiting period? Yeah, nobody
reason.
can answer it.
No reason.
No reason. DOJ doesn't want to answer that because I've thrown that out to him so many times. It's unbelievable.
That would be common sense.
Yeah, heaven forbid.
Yeah, my goodness.
You know, this instant background check stuff in California, we can't have that. We know they're wrong. You know, that brings up another thing that some of you may or may not come across when you're going to see your doctor. It's being reported, and it's not with my doctor, but I know I've heard of stories of people going, and the doctors are saying, you know, you've been with me for 10 years. We'd like you to fill out this health paperwork again, and so you know we get an idea of what's going on in your life and how you are and all of that. And so what we're doing is what these doctors are doing is they're putting together this paperwork, and on there one of the things of course they ask you is, do you own firearms?
Do you have guns in your house?
And yeah, and you have firearms in your house, and do you feel suicidal? Do you feel you may be a danger to yourself or others? I mean, they're actually putting these in these forms. And what they're doing is if you say, yeah, I'm a firearms owner, and by the way, I also happen to be depressed, these doctors are actually violating your Privacy Act, the HIPAA Act, and reporting out that I believe this patient is a danger to self and others. Thought that was interesting. I think everybody just needs to take a moment and think about this a little bit, where we're headed with this stuff. None of your business.
And I do that. I do that. I don't know how many people do that, but if I'm for a doctor or insurance or for whatever, if I can't see a clear nexus between the question and my health or my whatever, I always ask, why do you want to know? And if there's not a clear, absolute
medical reason for
medical
it.
reason,
That's right.
I say I'd rather not answer that question.
Yeah.
I'm not going to answer that question. Next question.
I never would.
And I've done that. I don't know. Maybe it was just the way I was raised, but I always do that. I've always done that.
No,
and I've never been
the way it should
denied
be.
for anything that I can think of.
Right.
Because I've said refused. But that's
They can't compel you to answer that.
none of nobody's business.
Exactly. But you know, you got big medical involved.
Here's a funny story.
All right.
We got time. This is an off-air
This
show,
is
so
a
we're gonna
it's
put it
off
on.
the air show. This is recorded.
So
We can go as long as we
when
want.
I was getting into law enforcement, and you have to go through your psych and your medical, and I went through my psych. It was a nice doctor down in Davis that I went to, and of course I'm in my late 20s. I'm just getting into this business, and I've never had a psychological evaluation in my life.
Right.
So I go to this guy's. His office is actually in his house. And I do the MMP, whatever it is, the 300 some question deal, and I sit there and fill all that out, and I do another one that's a couple hundred questions, and I fill all that out, and he comes and gets it, and he takes it off, and he's gone for 5 or 10 minutes, and then he comes back and he says, okay, well, I'm just gonna have a few questions for you, and I just want you to answer them as honestly as you can. And I said, okay, and he asked me a few questions, and yes and no's and this and everything else. And so how long have you and your wife been married? At the time it was like, I don't know, 8 years. And he says, so you guys get along? And I said, yeah, we're married. We have our arguments. How's your sex life? And I looked at him and I said, that's none of your business. Oh, and he moved on. And I thought, now, we got done. And he says, that was the end of the interview. You can head on back up to your agency. You should have information by the time you get there. Do you have any questions or concerns for me? Any questions for me? And I said, as a matter of fact, I do. And he says, what's that? And I said, well, you learned a very little bit about me. You interviewed me for just a few minutes. Very little, other than what I told you and what you're going to glean from how I answered questions. And And I know I may have upset you when I answered the one question, told you that was none of your business and everything. And I said, I just really think it's unfair that my whole career, my whole future for me and my family is now in your hands. You don't know me from Adam, but
Right.
you are going to decide on the rest of my life.
Interesting.
And he said, that's a valid concern.
See you later.
See you later, basically.
I knew that's what he was going to do. Yeah. Yeah. You know what they do? It's like those templates, they lay it over there, and if they don't see any check marks, they go, okay, he's all right. Yeah. It's,
I just thought it was funny. I mean, since then I've learned and I've had conversations with and actually utilized psychologists to do profiles and backgrounds and stuff on different suspects and crimes I've been investigating, and I've had them. They're right on. This person's going to be this way. This is how they are. This is what's going to happen. This is probably how they're going to answer these kind of questions. And by golly, they're right on the money.
Right.
So, and now being in an administrative position where we hire folks and, the psychs come back and, we typically only get pass or fail. That's what we get.
Right.
Once in a while they'll say, fail. Well, why would they fail a psych? Well, I think this person's going to have some issues in these areas and they're significant. And so, okay, we don't hire this person. And then 3 or 4 years down the road, you hear that this person was engaged in activity exactly what this doctor said. You go, wow, that's significant. So.
Yeah, I would guess that if you spend enough time around people, I had a friend who did police evaluations for a long, long time, a doctor, and he's moved on from that. He was involved with helping officers that were in shooting involvements. He was assigned to go help them and talk to them and help the family, and he did that for a number of years and all that. And then he's moved on to other things since then. But and this is 20 years ago or so, and I talked to him about it. He says, I can pretty much, by just asking a few questions and watching body language and a few other things, evaluate a person pretty quickly. I've seen so many, and I've known, I've done this for so long. And so, as much quackery as I tease the world of psychology. Yes, psychology. Yeah. Some of it is right on the money.
I think so. I had one dealing with a suspect who was in jail in an institution, and the crimes that the person was committed of while incarcerated were significant. Some evidence that we found was even more significant as to intentions. And I took this big box of documents and writings and interviews to a doctor that I knew that I had worked with before. And I said, just take a look at this guy and tell me what you think. And he came back and he says, look, the person is dangerous. When they get out, they will kill again. You are now on the list, but you're down the list. But it's going to take some time. They're very involved in planning and all this other stuff. Well, come to find out, I was on the notification and victim notification because of the threat against me, later threat against me.
Right.
And when the person was released, I got notified. The person fell off the radar. And about a couple years later, I found out and was notified that he was arrested in Bolivia for blowing up a hotel.
Wow.
And ended up dying in a Bolivian prison. Not sure if he committed suicide or exactly what the story.
Oh, they probably took care of him.
But, yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah. So, Doc was pretty
Yeah. Jeez. Well, they can go both ways, and unfortunately, many of our doctors have gone to school in very liberal, institutions. There's some more than others, and some are really, really bad. Totally anti-gun, but we won't go there. We haven't talked about the budget for a while.
Oh.
And that's always one of those areas where we want to go ahead and say, hey, what are the people up on the diocese thinking on your budget, and how's that going?
Well, we came out of everything okay.
Yeah.
I think couple times we've spoken here about the budget. I think the county started off with a $24 million structural deficit they needed to close, and then that went to 19, and then it went down to 7, and I think we ended up with a 4.9 or something structural deficit. And then they were going to solve the issue with across the board cuts, and
Right.
that's not going to work. And sure enough, it didn't work. But we were able to come up with $4.1 million in savings for the board, for our contribution to closing this issue that they had.
Right.
We did that by promising $2.9 million in salary savings. So throughout the year, as our vacant positions are open, even though we're trying to hire, I don't believe in holding positions open just to save money. Taxpayers paid for it. The board approved them. The communities deserve those positions. So we hire as quick as we can. But over time, those accumulated savings due to those vacancies are significant. For instance, last year we had promised a $1.3 million savings. We closed that gap by November of the fiscal year. So this year's 2.9. We came up with the other 1.2 by doing a true sub-object code line item review. And we came up with $1.2 million that we could cut out of our budget, but that is not sustainable.
Right.
This is going to be pretty much a one-time deal. One time, and I explain it like this. For instance, our magazine. We have so many 100,000 rounds in our magazine. Every year we budget for so many 100,000 rounds to deal with training. Well, when we cut our budget so much that we're cutting that ammunition budget, we're going to eventually run out of ammo because we're not buying enough to even keep up with annual qualifications, quarterly qualifications.
Right.
So these cuts are not sustainable, but we've done it now, and we'll be okay this year. We've already I've already given back $13.7 million. We've had those discussions before about, on my fund balances. This year, even with the 1.3 promise last year or in last year's budget, we still the projections are, and my CFO is usually right on the money, but we're right around $3.125 million fund balance this year. The county did agree. The property is for the new public safety facility is in escrow. The county did agree to use $2.6 million of whatever fund balance I did have to buy the dirt. So that's going to be covered. That's fine. They've already allocated that. But we're going to be fine. We're going to get through it. My biggest fear, and we had these conversations before on the show, is come June 30th, when the fiscal year closes and the proposed budget is done, and then come September, middle of September, when the final budget is done,
Right.
what's called addenda,
Right.
there's that period of time in there where these fund balances start rolling in from all departments. And that's typically when the board goes, oh, see, it's not so bad. We got money. And then they spend. That's bad. That's bad. And that's what I worry about. Because here's where I'm moving forward. I've worked really hard, and the agencies work really hard, and we've been able to prove our point, and the board has agreed, and we've had tremendous public support and community support for getting this new facility. It's imperative. The inefficiencies that we have spread out, and we've had many conversations on this show about it.
Yeah.
So, but we're to the point now where we're beyond what I would call the point of no return. We got escrow going. We got the money allocated for the dirt.
Good.
We got the RFP going out for the bridging docks to help start design and everything else. CEQA, the EIR are pretty much done. Depending on the funding stream, if we use some federal funding, which looks like it's going to be a possibility, long-term, low interest, we may have to do a NEPA piggyback on it, but it'll be short because it pretty much duplicates CEQA. So we're there. I really see the end in sight. It's like in October of 2018. Looks like will be completion date. I'm just ecstatic for the staff and for the communities that we serve, because we're going to be able to provide such a better service.
So, tell us where.
Oh, it's on Industrial Drive off of Missouri Flat behind the trust company.
Okay.
right there.
Right there.
It's perfect.
Good.
It's fantastic.
Easy location, not far
Yep.
from the freeway. People can get to it. Well,
Yep.
it's not going to have much traffic mitigation
Nope.
to it. Perfect.
We're looking great.
Good.
So now it's time to look at where are we staffing wise. And I don't want to be. Everybody knows I'm very conservative in budgeting. I'm very conservative in staffing. I'm not an empire builder. I firmly believe government only exists so that it can grow, and I hate that. But when we are looking at our staffing and the services that we're providing, we are at exactly 2003 staffing levels.
Wow.
To the T. It's uncanny. Usually it's, well, yeah, you got 371 on the books, the same as you had in 2003, but they had 15 more deputies and they had less fiscal staff or whatever. No, it's almost exactly to a T, with just the exception of a couple positions. The same amount of deputies, sergeants, lieutenants, fiscal, sheriff's tech, records clerks,
I'll be darned.
correctional officers. It's almost exactly. Since then, the county has grown nearly 15%. Calls for service have gone up 15%. Everything has gone up commensurate with that. Now, in 2008 was the highest staffing that we ever had before the crash. Everything started coming down after that. The 2008-9 budget was the largest. So internally, as a starting point, I have given direction to start a staffing study and see where we are using those 2008 levels, but with an efficiency standard approach. So meaning in 2008, we had 4 captains. We don't need 4 captains. Our agency works just perfect with 3 captains: operations, support, and corrections. It works perfect that way. But that position, does it make sense to just get rid of the position and say that's one we don't need, or does it make sense for service level and efficiency to say, okay, but for that captain we can have a deputy and a records tech? Do we need that or not? I can already tell you just off the top of my head, with what I've looked at, what I would like with the 4 patrol teams that we have. 2 more on each one of those at least. That's 8. 3 more detectives. They're hammered. That's 11. I would like a detective. And 3 resident deputies. That's 14 bodies. And that's 14 positions there, and a detective in the jail. With AB 109 dealing with what we have with a more sophisticated inmate, with the prison politics and the prison games that are now being started to play in our jail, I think it would make a lot of sense to have a detective assigned to the jail, a sworn detective that does nothing but work informants, monitor phone calls, help with the mail reviews and things like that. We would catch a lot of crime going on in our community and in our jail.
Realignment have an effect to that?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So that's 15 deputies. That's still lower than 2008 levels. And then how many correctional officers and how many support staff to go along with that, I don't know. But it's time to start having those conversations. I purposely haven't, I'll admit it, because I wanted to make sure this facility was not sidetracked. It's gotten sidetracked too many times in the past, and we can't afford it anymore. But now's the time to start having the conversations of where are we at staffing-wise, and where do we need to be able to provide a higher level of service than we even are now. Even in the county's general plan, there's a section in there that says average response time by law enforcement to the core area. And that is further defined later on as being basically the Highway 50 corridor from El Dorado Hills up to about Camino, a few miles on either side. That average response time shall be 8 minutes or less. Shall. We've never, ever met that requirement.
Yeah.
Never have. There's only 2 ways to fix it. We either redirect resources to the core, ignoring the outlying areas, ignoring North County, South County, and further up the canyon, or put more deputies on the road.
Right.
So It's just time to start the conversation. It's time to start moving forward. The other county departments, there's been 132.15 employees hired since we started coming out of the slump. New positions, I should say, not new employees hired, but new positions added to the books. We haven't taken advantage of any of those. The ones we did have were funded by AB 109, and one detective was funded by an elder abuse grant. That's all we've got. It's time to start having those conversations.
Yeah, absolutely. And the way things are going, there's nothing more important right now. We got to keep our law enforcement
Thank you.
up,
Appreciate
up,
that. I agree.
up to the point where we are, not 15% behind. And I think all of you should look at that and realize what Sheriff DeAugustini just said. Think about it. We're growing in this community, and we talked a little bit about being a resource community, that if something major happens in the Bay Area, let's say, or something like that, where we're going to have a situation where we're going to need to bring people away from whatever disaster it is and bring them into these areas, you're going to be seriously undermanned.
Yes, we will be.
Yeah. Now there's going to be a lot of volunteers jumping in and helping, but
again, God bless our volunteers.
Yeah.
We have over 600 volunteers, and we couldn't do nearly what we do without them. Every one of them is just a godsend. But no, if there was a major event, we've had those conversations on the show about refugees, where they go, how far they get, how far they typically go. I think it's half a tank of gas or whatever it is.
Right.
That's where we are. We know how many we can handle in the county. We know how many we can't. When it gets to a point, what do? We've had those conversations. We have those plans to deal with. But resource-wise, we will be tapped.
It's going to be tough. And, one of the examples that I thought, and Jonathan and I worked this online during the King Fire, 24 hours. And one of the things was getting information out to everybody. And we felt that it was our duty to pay out of our pocket, that it was one more avenue of getting information out to people. And there were people that thanked us a lot because the only people they could get were us. And we passed information along. And that got me really thinking a lot about, a situation like a King Fire could easily happen again in our situation. And
any minute.
Wouldn't take much, would it? No, it's awful. So and that's when I got thinking about manpower and what we have and what we're going to do. And I've got some more free time now than I used to have before, and I want to volunteer a little bit more. I'm part of the posse. We got the posse picnic coming up that I bought a sponsored a table for, so that I could help all the folks out there. You bet. Yeah, step right up for that one. And anyway, I think it's going to be, we learned a lot on that fire. I know that we learned something about how to help. And that's the reason I brought it up, because I am concerned as to, the ability to service the people during an emergency.
Yeah, and that fire would have tapped any agency's resources.
Absolutely.
And I'm not saying I need to be staffed so high that we need to be able to even handle situations like that at any given notice. That's never going to happen. Thank God. That's why we have mutual aid.
Right.
As a matter of fact, we're getting ready to send some deputies up to Trinity County because they've reached out for mutual aid, and they were there for us, and by golly, we're going to be there for them. Period. But I learned a lot. The agency as a whole learned a lot during the Angora fire and retained a lot of that knowledge. And a lot of that we learned, that was learned during the Angora, was relationships. And even though we may have some issues with some agencies, and I'll just say it, namely the federal agencies, but the relationships with some of the key players that understand and live in our community and get our community, those relationships are huge in an event like that. And what really was a disaster, but also a blessing at the same time, was the sand fire.
Right.
That was like a real life training, although it was terrible, but a real life training exercise just shortly before the King.
Right.
We were geared up. Our staff were already wound up. They'd already had the immediate experience for both mutual aid, for dealing with the interagencies, for the EOC, running up the EOC and having everything dialed for the evacuation centers and the this and the that and the next thing and the next thing and boom, boom, boom. When the King Fire hit, as tragic as it was by the numbers. I was
Right.
so impressed with my staff, with all of our partners' staff. It was very, very well handled. As a matter of fact, I think I said it on this show one time. We got kudos by both federal staff, federal leaders, and state leaders immediately in the mop-up phase that the operation and the communication and the
Right.
cooperation of how we handled that emergency from start to end was a model for the nation, and that they are now reaching out to us for advice and guidance
Rightfully
how
so.
to
Absolutely.
move that model ahead and what do we do in these types of situations. So
And the community as a whole jumped right in. I mean, we weren't Jonathan and I weren't the only ones of the show, jumping in and doing things. Everybody was
but
out
it
there.
was the coordination of everything that made it work. There was no issues of, typically when you have something really big happen, you always have issues of, oh my gosh, well, we got to, that's getting out of control over there. We got to, and I'm not saying control people, but just direction
Sure.
to make sure that the correct things are getting done and people aren't going rogue and doing something that we don't want them or they don't
Right.
want to be doing themselves.
And they weren't turf building and they weren't
We
doing
didn't have
any of that. Yeah.
Everybody were, what can we do? We need this done.
Yeah.
It was amazing. It was amazing. So.
Yeah, let's hope we don't have a repeat of it, but it was I felt really proud of El Dorado County. I thought we did a hell of a job, and
I was very proud.
yeah.
And I was extremely proud of my staff. I
absolutely.
can't talk enough good about them. They're all just stars.
Yeah, they're all good, all great people. Well, we've this has been a great show. We had an opportunity just to kind of shoot stuff out there and talk about things. Next month, we're going to bring back body cams.
Okay.
Because I see the feds playing around out there on some mandates going
And
on
our
with that
state.
one in our state.
playing in it, too.
So there may be some unfunded mandates I can see happening.
You know how I handle those.
I know. Anyway, but I think it'll be an interesting conversation for another month from now. And I just can't thank you enough for coming in and doing this once again, of course. I think we keep the county informed about what's going on with El Dorado County Sheriff's Department and with John. And thank you very much. And this is Rob with Old Guy Tech TV on Crime Beat. We'll see you next time.